So shall I start?
Please go ahead.
Okay. So a very good morning to all of you who have joined. Uh, Respected Professor in charge Raman sir and our guest speaker, keynote speaker, Dr. Hemant Shah. Uh, a very happy IP day, though the situation again is not that happy and things are in a very, very serious condition. When we remember that we have celebrated this very day in the, last year, we are very hopeful that we will be dealing with it or organizing it in a physical mode. But the situation becomes more grim, at this very time. But having said that, we need to work in our own ways. How can we, contribute to society? How we can cope up with this very situation by keeping the things on. So while making this thing or grabbing this very situation, we need to think over various aspects which are crucial for the society. And we have to find out the innovative methods through which we can solve the real world problems, and IP assist in some ways in doing that. So one of the stakeholders uh, in the IP domain is the MSMEs, that is micro, small, and medium enterprises, or in India it is being termed like that or classified like that, but SMEs are all pervasive, that is small and medium enterprises. So why they are very important to us and why IP is important to discuss in that context. So MSMEs are all pervasive and they are meant for providing household things. They are the lifeblood of not only you can say economy, but also our daily lives. Everything which we get that is coming from some small industries or you can say micro industries, which we daily use. So why we are discussing this very theme? Why we are? Why WIPO has selected this very theme? The reason behind that was that these, MSMEs or SMEs, they are not that much. Realizing their potential uh, of creating something which is valuable from the IP perspective. So they may be at loss from in different ways. For example, if they are creating something but not realizing that they have created something, that may pass on to someone else. So they may lose that very value, which may be easily, you can say, procured by them. On the other hand, they may be using something which may be a kind of infringement of other intellectual property rights. So if they are not aware of that, then again they are, exposing themselves to the, jeopardy. So in that very sense, if we need to, promote them, if you need to, I mean, value their work, we need to guard them through the intellectual property. So in that very sense, why it is so much relevant in today's world, the reason behind that is that we are living in an age which is termed as, informational age, where knowledge economy is all pervasive. So in that very knowledge economy, the intangible assets are gaining importance. So if these IP strategies are being properly adopted by these SMEs, then they may not only, gain benefit in their own business, but they can gain extra benefit through their IP assets. So it is all beneficial and it is a tool of empowerment. If it is being properly applied like intellectual property, then SMEs may be triggered to innovate something. And a country of this very size, if that would be, in all inclusive, in the sense that as MSMEs are properly trained to generate IP, then that would be the great addition for the national economy. So having said that, I'm inviting Professor Raman Mittal sir to give his, welcoming remark. So sir, please, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Kshitij. So, Dr. Hemang Shah, the keynote speaker for today, Dr. Kshitij Kumar Singh, the convener of Legal Aid Society of Campus Law Center, my colleagues, and dear students. I congratulate you all on the occasion of World Intellectual Property Day. In order to mark the day, we are organizing this webinar, and we are extremely grateful to Mr. Hemang Shah for kindly agreeing to deliver this keynote address. I would like to tell you a small story as part of my welcome remarks. Once, more than 1,000 years ago, when Vastapara, the king of Persia, was returning from a victorious campaign, he came near to the place where the great mystic Zarathustra lived. He decided to visit the mystic. The king said to Zarathustra, I have come to you, and you may kindly explain to me the laws of nature and the universe. I cannot wait. I'm in a hurry. I'm coming from Var and I have important matters to solve. I must reach the capital, so tell me quickly. Looking at the king, Zarathustra smiled and took a grain of wheat from the earth and gave it to him and said, in this small grain of wheat are contained all the laws of the universe and the forces of nature. The king was much astonished by his answer, which of course he did not understand. So he was angry and threw the grain upon the ground, thinking that he was being mocked by the king. And to Zarathustra he said, I was foolish to waste my time by coming here to see you. Years passed. The king led a life of luxury and apparent contentment. But at night, when he went to bed, strange thoughts came into his mind, and those thoughts really troubled him. I live in luxury and abundance in this splendid palace, but how long shall I enjoy this? This abundance, this power, this wealth is all around me permanent. And no one was able in the palace and around him was able to answer these questions. These were existential questions. And in the meantime, in all these years, Zarathustra grew in his fame and renown. So, putting aside his pride, he dispatched a great caravan of treasure to Zarathustra, and with it, an invitation and a request. I regret, the king wrote, that when I was impatient and thoughtless in my youth, I asked you to explain the great problems of existence in a few minutes of time. I have changed now, but I am still deeply interested to know the laws of the universe and the forces of nature, even more so than when I was a young man. Please come to my palace, I pray you. Or if it is not possible, then send me the best of your disciples, that he may teach me all that he can about these existential questions. After an interval, the caravan and the messengers returned. They told the king that the mystic Zarathustra has sent him greetings and had sent the king a gift wrapped in a leaf and had asked the messengers to tell him that this was the teacher who could teach him everything. The king opened it curiously and found the same grain again, the same grain of wheat that Zarathustra had given him before, many years before. He thought there must be something mysterious and magical in it, so he put it in a golden box and hid it among its treasures. But almost every day he looked at it, expecting some miracle to happen, such as the turning of the grain of wheat into something or someone that would teach him all the wisdom that he wanted to know. Months went by, and then years, but nothing happened. At last, the king lost his patience and said, "It seems that Zarathustra has deceived me again. Either he is making fun of me, or else he does not know the answer to my questions himself. But doesn't matter," he said to himself. "I will try." So the king sent a caravan to a great Indian mystic, Trengacha, to whom came disciples from all over the world. And with the caravan went the same messengers and the same trayer that he had once sent to Zarathustra. So that means he was looking for a substitute. After many months, the messengers returned from India with the philosopher. But the philosopher, on arrival, told the king, "I am honored to be your teacher, but in frankness, I must tell you that I have come chiefly to your country that I may meet the great mystic Zarathustra, that I may have an opportunity to meet him, to be close to him." Then the king took the golden box containing the grain of wheat and answered, "I asked Zarathustra to teach me. See, this is what he sent me. Here is the teacher who shall teach me the laws of the universe and the forces of nature. Is this not ridiculous?" The Indian philosopher looked long at the grain of wheat, and then he said, "I do not regret my many months of journey to your country of Persia. For now I know that Zarathustra is in truth the great teacher that I have long believed him to be. This tiny grain of wheat can indeed teach us the laws of the universe and the forces of nature, for it contains them in itself right now. You must not keep the grain of wheat in this golden box, and if you do so, you are missing the whole point. If you plant this little grain in earth where it belongs, in contact with the soil, in contact with the rain, with the dew, with the air, with the sunshine, with the light of the moon and the stars, then, like a universe in itself, it will begin to grow bigger and bigger. What we can learn from this story, my dear friends, is that the small grain of wheat is like an idea. Most ideas look ridiculous in the beginning. Even the ideas that were behind the greatest inventions that have taken place were ridiculed in the beginning. However, they should not be ridiculed and thrown away. They are not meant to be imprisoned in golden boxes either. Such ideas need to be carefully planted in the right soil. Then only they will turn into innovation. But where is the soil to be found? Or where is the right soil to be found? It is to be found only in the market and nowhere else. And who will carry these ideas to the market so that they may pass through the process of innovation? Who will drive these seeds to the market? Most of the important seeds of ideas are in fact with small enterprises. And hence lies the importance of small, as we say, SMEs or small and medium sized enterprises. The proverbial seeds will then blossom into flowers, and SMEs perform that important function to germination. I once again welcome you all to the celebration of World Intellectual Property Day. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. And you have very rightly reflected that how we value the ideas and how we value the ideas of those who are neglected, who are not that much, I mean, catched up. So that is the need, and how we provide that legal framework, policy framework to them, where they can, I mean, exercise their ideas in a very fruitful manner, reduce their ideas in some tangible forms, or you can say useful forms. So that is a big challenge, and this is the very, I mean, aspect which we are dealing with today. And thank you very much, sir, for your very enlightening story and the observation which you made. Now I will turn up to Dr. Hemang Shah. I will just go through his brief profile. And before getting into that, I must tell you that He has been responsible for developing a L2 Pro platform for MSMEs or SMEs for development of IP or training of IP or IP filing. That was a collaboration of three, I mean, you can say entities. One is government, the other one is NLU Delhi, and his company, that is Qualcomm, where he's working. So in that way, he's the most pertinent person to ask to share his thoughts or request to share his thought. So I'm just briefly going through his profile. Dr. Hemant Shah works with Qualcomm Technology Licensing in India. Currently, he leads their engineering engagements in India, including the Qualcomm Designs in India program. And through this program, they have incubated more than 60 startups working on innovative products for sectors, including healthcare, small cities, agri-tech, robotics, and more. He also serves as an IP mentor for startups, guiding them their IP strategy. Dr. Shah has experience in IP portfolio projects, working on a wide range of matters for key technical areas. He has served as patent review boards for different technical areas and frequently engages with inventors. So he enjoys the intersection of technology domains and has R&D experience on projects spanning semiconductors, multimedia, MSMEs, MEMS, material science, optics, and nanotechnology. So he has also a doctorate degree in electrical engineering from Drexel University, and is a certified design thinking expert and enjoys sharing insights on innovation. And he has 2 US patents to his credit and 10 patents pending, apart from several peer-reviewed publications. So with this very brief, profile, uh, I mean, uh, detail, I will be requesting Dr. Hemant Shah to deliberate upon this very topic and share his thought, which is usually missing in our discourse because we are not exposed to these, SMEs or MSMEs or startups. So this is the time where industry or university must come together and find it out what is valuable to the society. So with this, I am just requesting you, Dr. Shah, to deliver.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kshitij and Dr. Mittal, for inviting me here today. It's indeed an honor for me to be here on both for World IP Day and for your esteemed university. And I'm very happy to see so many students. Uh, First off, I wish all of you and your loved ones are safe and healthy. These are trying times for the country, so please be safe. Take as much care as you can, and as much as possible, let's just stay indoors. And hopefully, this will pass soon. Now, let me switch gears and share a couple of things why I'm so passionate about working with SMEs and startups. Firstly, I come from a family of uh, what you would call as small enterprises. My grandfather started a textile business, pretty much from nothing. My father took it to a certain level, uh, and it was amazing. In India, especially, SMEs are a true driver uh, of growth across various factors. They bring new products in the market. They teach us new businesses. They often grab the pulse before the people even know that this is an emerging trend. However, one factor was missing, especially when my family was closely driving that business, and that was protecting your innovation. And I believe that's one thing, that while they were innovating, while they were taking big risks in bringing those innovations to market, they did not fully enjoy the fruits of their hard work. And now that I'm working mostly on the technical front, that's where innovation and intellectual property play an even important role. So I'm here to share, some of my insights and observations with you. I would like to give a brief disclaimer that this will be all in a personal capacity. And Dr. Kshitij, if I have your permission, can I share some slides? Maybe that will give some context. So I see the sharing option available, and once you see my screen, please let me know if you can see the content. So I trust that you can see my screen. So Qualcomm started, was a company founded by a professor, Dr. Jacobs, Dr. Viterbi, who's written an amazing book on coding and so many, other pertinent topics in the field of electronics and communication engineering. It was really a company founded by a professor and a few of their friends. But the key thing that they kept, at the forefront was that we are going to solve system level problems. That's in the DNA. And what's also important was when they tackled on a communication technique called as CDMA. Some of you might remember CDMA phones were introduced to India, I believe, in the late 90s. And at that time, when Qualcomm had developed that technology, they had faced a lot of challenges. A lot of people were not believing in that, in the power that CDMA could bring, and they went about proving everyone wrong. But how? We made it work across multiple levels, not in the lab, but out in the real world. And alongside that, they kept invention and innovation at the forefront of our DNA. And now that we can see, in terms of how communication changes our lives, now in a few years, India will see the rapid growth of 5G, and that's going to bring in applications across so many factors, right? Just imagine the different use cases that we are doing on devices, like our phone. This is so integral to our lives. A few years ago, I would always check my pant pockets to make sure I had my wallet, because my wallet contained, my ID card. It contained, the cash which I wanted to get around, bus fare or a rickshaw fare, whatever you call it. Nowadays, I check my pant to worry about if I'm carrying this in my pocket or not. If I forget my wallet, it's okay, but I cannot forget my phone. And a phone has become a central part for so many areas in our lives. We use it for authentication, we use it for payments, we use it for entertainment, we use it for teaching, we use it for solving high-tech problems. I mean, it's amazing how such a thing has done, and 5G will really advance it. And so now what you're looking at is just a crazy growth. And one of the areas that this growth will be provided will be through engaging with various, I guess, members of your ecosystem. So the way the company has worked, and I've had experience in touching a lot of these segments, because you always start with, say, fundamental research, but then you also work with people who are taking that research and making sure that standards are developed so that other devices can work. You work with various members of the ecosystem, with developers, with device makers, and it's a cycle. It's not that you do it one and you're done. It's a constantly evolving loop. And one of the ways in which we in India, with how we started getting involved, was in working with startups. So through a program called Qualcomm Design in India program, we have committed to accelerating innovation in the country. As Dr. Kshitij mentioned in my introduction, this program has been running for the past 5 years. They have incubated around 65 startups. They have launched more than 22 products. And this started, first off, by running a program which was a challenge-based, where we bring in startups, so every year we take anywhere from, say, 10 to 15 startups, and they solve really deep problems. And the range of problems that they touch upon, they vary from drones to medtech. I'll give a couple of examples. So last year's winner was a company called Adivo. They make a device which is essentially, it's a portable device like a phone, which looks at a wound. So imagine if you have a wound which is progressing. And normally what doctors tell you to do is they get the patients to do culture analysis. And when you do culture analysis, that may take maybe 3 days, maybe a week for all the results to come for everyone to interpret. But imagine, the backlog it creates on the testing facility, on the patient, on the doctors. Now, this company had developed amazing algorithms that can analyze wounds by just imaging. And so they can give a very strong leading indicator on whether a wound is progressing well or if it is worsening. So instead of the patient waiting for a week to hear about what the results are, maybe they can hear from the doctor in a couple of hours. So, and we are bringing all that to essentially a very portable mobile device. Another example I'll give is by this company called Planis. They are developing underwater drones. Now we are familiar with drones, which are used for aerial imaging. Now this company, they are making drones which are used for marine projects. Where if you want to, let's say, do a deep sea exploration, you want to figure out, let's say, if there's an oil field which is deep in the sea, but there might be corrosion happening. So their drone swims over there. It can be tethered, it can be autonomous. They do the imaging, they come up and they give the results. So companies in India are solving problems like this. And we are enabling them through our technology. Like I personally could not have thought of those applications, but it's these startups, it's these SMEs who are doing that. The next thing that we are partnering with is by universities which are working on fundamental research. So you partner with them through a fellowship program where they get to work with Qualcomm researchers. We also have a program where we work with startups which are much further in their journey. So we call it an accelerated design program. And alongside all these, there are some differentiators which we bring about. So we help with them on their product design. So where SMEs, as Dr. Mittal was saying, it starts with an idea. That is the seed. But you have to nurture that seed into plants. And just putting it in any soil will not work. You have to find the right soil for it. You have to give it the right nutrients. So similarly, when a startup has an interesting idea, you have to figure out, okay, how do you take that idea into a product, and more so into a product that can scale. So we work with them, we guide them on how they can better design the product. Now, as they are developing interesting features, it's very natural that they will come about, different innovations. Now, how do you protect those innovations? So we conduct IPR workshops with them, and most importantly, startups, especially tech startups, tend to have a very strong engineering base. They are coders, they are hardware designers, they are developers, but they may not know all the aspects as the company grows in size. Things might be easy when they are a 2% or 3% company, but now when they go to 10% to a 50%, a lot of other things come into play. So firstly, how do they grow as a business? Because just doing things, interesting things in the lab is not enough. Ultimately, you have to make products which customers can use, which customers will pay you a premium for, and that drives the further growth back into you so that you can again work on more innovations. So we provide mentoring on all those fronts. Now, what does the ecosystem support look like? As I'll take the example that Dr. Mittal gave, that seed to further plants, right? You have to provide nurturing on various fronts. In our world, especially when we are working with tech startups, the technical enablement is really important. A lot of times, when you talk of say lab support, they might give you things which are great only for the lab. So by just proving it in the lab, I might have an interesting prototype, but I have to really figure out a way to make sure that what we are providing them to develop upon can quickly go to a nurtured product. So we make sure that our technical enablement is keeping that end goal in the mind. So which means giving them platforms which are great for say pilot production, even their first two or three batches of production, after which they can optimize and go further up ahead. Then how does a startup get visibility? So the couple of examples I gave on those startups, the market for them, if you think about who will need this wound diagnosis, it's not just India who will need it. People get injured everywhere in the world. There are diseases no matter where you go. So the market for them is actually global. Similarly, that underwater drone, right? Underwater drone, like the that there are so many exploration projects which will need their help. So how do you provide them that right visibility so that they can connect with various stakeholders, be it in the government, be it at other industry showcases. So we've taken our startups to say 4G, 5G Summit in Hong Kong. For the ones that are working on say smart cities, we have taken them to accelerator workshops across the world and other startup festivals such as the Meet Taipei Startup Festival. Similarly, we want them to also, so we teach what we practice. So we, as a company, we strongly believe in the power of intellectual property, and it's really fundamental. So we want the startups to also think, from an IP perspective at all the times, that it should be an important part of their business strategy. So we make sure that they are treating IP with that level of importance. Similarly, how do they scale their business operations? Because again, getting that first customer, getting that first product showcase can be just a starting point. But how do they scale further up from that? And finally, as a startup scales up, they may realize that, okay, I've got a large order, but I don't have the funds to pay for that PO, or I might need some certification, but I may not have the necessary funds for that. So we help them out through an innovation commercialization fund. So we try to, as much as possible, touch base every aspect that startups will require so that they can nurture into sustainable businesses. And now let me also briefly touch upon the focus on intellectual property and L2Pro. So one of the most important things for tech startups in the country is to ensure that they truly realize the business impact of intellectual property rights. So here, we teach them how they can, gain different aspects of IP, and truly, in working with startups, I've realized that their understanding of intellectual property has a big range. So there are some startups which are very IP savvy, and that's because their founders or the key people had either strong mentorship or they had prior background in that domain. They either work for companies which treated IP as an important aspect, but majority of the startups may have only a very narrow view of what IP is. So we try to make sure that they have a more expansive view. So a lot of people, of course, understand that there is a prevention of copying if you protect your innovations and IP. But we try to make sure how they can really think of it from that domain. The other interesting aspect is when I started interacting with startups in roughly in the year 2015, a lot of the VCs would just ask a question about IP as a check mark, that are they filing for patents or not if it's a tech startup. But nowadays we have VCs who are really getting curious about the quality of IP. Here's an interesting aspect on a company reputation and a product image. Now, for some of you as you travel, especially to countries which value intellectual property. So I've spent some time in the US, and over there, if you order say a cup of coffee, they'll give you a cup of coffee in this paper cup, and on top of that cup they'll put a cardboard sleeve. The purpose of that cardboard sleeve is just to make sure that your hands don't get that much heat. And now if you flip that cardboard sleeve over, you will see a list of patents over there. So we might think that something as simple as a cardboard sleeve which is protecting a cup of coffee is backed by patents. So naturally we start thinking that this must be a really brilliant innovation, and we start looking at a product very differently. So if you list, let's say, the patents which you have, it can dramatically enhance your reputation and of course your product image. Now, startups also can cross collaborate, because especially in the tech domain, there might be multiple people which are looking at the same problem at the same time, and it's quite natural that they might have some similarities, or rather some areas where they can cross collaborate. So they can do that. Of course, people largely understand the importance of say, taking legal action if someone is not honoring your IP rights. But importantly, what especially I try to teach them is that you should think of IP as assets which you're building. So for those of you who are familiar with say financial statements, there is something called as balance sheet. So you have to think of IP as, hey, I am building an asset, or rather I'm building a portfolio of assets. Majority of the times, startups tend to think that hey, IP is a cash outflow for me. It's a cost because I have to pay for all these legal expenses. I have to think of paying various agents and so on and so forth. But yes, it's an expense. But at the end of that, you are getting an asset which can be monetized. So switch your lens that way. And keeping that in mind, we realize that that startups and SMEs especially do not have a ready reference. So we created an app called as L2 Pro, which stands for Learn to Protect, Secure, and Maximize Your Innovations. So this is like a ready reference material. It is available for free on the web and on the app stores. But essentially, you learn about various things that apply to intellectual property, and these are complete or of complete importance to startups. So right from patents to software, trademarks, we cover all the aspects, including the government incentives that startups need to be aware of, including how they can think of IP from a business perspective. As Dr. Kshitij mentioned in the introduction, this is a collaboration with DPIIT, CPAM, National Law University, Delhi. I thought of sharing some screenshots because I know all of you, especially being law students and law professors, reading thick textbooks and all is like second nature to all of you. But the startups that I tend to interact with, they tend to have a very short attention span. They really want to know material in a very quick instance. So we thought that why don't we present the material in a way that is firstly engaging to them. It also lets them know the most important things at the get. So here we are showing you some screenshots of how the same material, but rather than being in a pure academic form, we made it so that it's relevant to startups. There are 3 modules, and participants who complete these modules successfully. There are assessments at the end of it. You can get a certificate which is issued by DPIIT, CPAM, and NLU Delhi. And finally, you can access this material at l2proindia.com, or you can search the app by searching for L2 Pro India. I want to reiterate that you can download the course for offline viewing also, and it's completely free. So some of the nuances which I'd heard about startups, so I mentioned about the narrow view that they had. The other thing that required nurturing, and that's where a lot of your help will happen, is to help them think on the lines that a portfolio is important. It's not just getting one patent or one trademark, it's giving them an all-round picture. So as future professionals, because I'm sure that all you students are going to work with startups in some shape or form, not just on the IP matters, but on an all-round front. I think that's the true value which you can bring to this exciting domain. Because I believe startups in India, we are just beginning. It's already the 4th month of the year. There are more than 10 unicorn announcements, and there will be more to come. So all of you have an important part to play in this journey, and you can guide them on various fronts: on the legal structuring part, on the commercials part, and on the IP part. On the IP front, where I tend to participate a lot more, is giving them an all-round view, making sure you're creating a portfolio of IP assets, and making sure you're thinking of these from a business perspective, not just one narrow view. So I would like to pause here, Dr. Kshitij, and maybe we can have a free flow of ideas, or we can take questions.
Thank you, Dr. Shah. It's very enlightening. Discussion and presentation, and there are various issues which you have just made clear. One of them, which is so catchy to me, was like now we are paying more heed to the quality of the patents or the inventions which are being the subject matter of the patents, as well as, I mean, increased focus is being paid on, I mean, uh, considering IP as an asset rather than, just developing portfolios. So, I mean, in academic circle or in business circle, in both the circles, I mean, portfolio is being looked very, very, I mean, sincerely. And while doing that, the data becomes more important rather than the quality. So this is sometimes, I mean, heartening for the radical innovations which must come from the companies or from the individuals. So that is very enlightening. So I will be looking into the chat box, what is there. So if I am opening the floor for anyone who can ask either directly or you can say typing in the chat box. So you can also ask directly. So, Misbah, can you help it out? In the meanwhile, I will just ask you, I mean, which is coming to my mind, a question. I mean, when you interact with the MSMEs, they are so much engrossed in their own business. I mean, whatever they are dealing with. So sometimes they think that, no, it is not conducive environment, so I should not attempt for it or something like that. So how you deal with that very situation and what kind of concerns you have, registered while interacting with them?
Sure. It's very natural that they will be focused on their immediate priorities. But sometimes you have to ask, especially the founders or people who we call as the C level, right? They might be the CEO of the startup or MSME or the CTO. That if we would want you to take a step back and look at these aspects. So, for example, when it comes to intellectual property, or rather a culture of innovation. Even if IP is a byproduct of a culture of innovation. So there, my goal is to make sure that the message from the top is loud and clear, that everyone sees the importance of contributing to ideas and taking their ideas further. Because what can happen is if people just start going about in their daily lives and all that, things will never happen. They might just have a wish list that, oh, I want to come about with some innovation, or I want to get some patents filed. But you have to make it into a tangible thing. So one of the ways that I have at least encouraged our startups is it's important to have a quarterly review, not like a weekly review, not like a monthly review or something, but a quarterly review.
Okay.
So every company has to file taxes every quarter, right? They have to do maybe some GST report, things like that. So similarly, insert a question that, hey, what are the ideas that we came about with? What have we done to them? And so if they hear the leadership speaking about this, everyone in that company will slowly start contributing. So it's an upward spiral.
Okay, there's one question from Akshay, and it is, sir, wanted to know how to find investors or investment. So if I connect it, I mean, I am also exposed to these questions because this is a costly affair. And sometimes these companies are not that much in a position that they can deal with these kind of situations and maintain a kind of IP or something. So from where they can get this very investment, whether private companies are also helping them out or something. So this is the first one.
Sure.
So can I just recite the second one also for your convenience? The second is from Gargi Bhattacharya, who is asking that what is the scope for law students in the field of IP generally?
Okay. So let me address the first question, which is how do you find investors or investment? Actually, right now in India, the time is an awesome time to have a startup, right? Because it's a very thriving ecosystem. You have government which is firstly supporting things. I would ask you to be very familiar with Startup India website. To me, it's a central repository where every time I want to learn something, I go there because anything new is featured over there. And a lot of times, Startup India portal itself is running various challenges, various contests, is partnering with, let's say, either uh, uh, the government incubators or some private entities. So you can learn a lot about that. So getting, let's say seed funding and all that, you have a lot of avenues for that. Okay, having said that, I would also ask you, firstly, why is it important for you to find an investor and in which domain? A lot of times, people just are at the idea stage and they're like, hey, I want someone to fund this idea right away. I will flip the question to you and rather say that maybe what you should do is work on the idea, show that you can create a prototype, show that because once you create a prototype, that gets people the proper visibility of what you are truly making. And then they'll be more interested in saying, okay, fine, this is a product that we want to take further. If you cannot, then there'll be some domains where even to generate that prototype, you will need a lot of funding. Like years back when I was working in material science, all those equipment were quite expensive. But to get those experiments or for me to get access to those labs in the first place, I had to give them kind of like a blueprint that this is what I'm making, this is what these are the steps I'll take, here is what my expected observations will be. In other words, you're creating sort of like a business plan. And once you have a business plan, you'll realize a couple of things. You will realize what your assumptions are and what your blind spots are. And you will refine it. And after refinement, if you're able to present that plan in a clear manner, the investors will believe in your vision. And then the funding which you want, you will get that. So again, to reiterate, be familiar with Startup India website. That is a central repository. Be familiar with a lot of the private incubators. The government is also running a fair amount of incubators. Every state is running their own version also. And thirdly, a lot of I would also look at universities because universities have their own incubators. In fact, they're very passionate if their students can take their ideas to market. Sure. So, Dr. Kshitij, shall we go to the next question?
Yeah, please.
Sure. So the scope for law students in the field of IP, Gargi, again, it's a pretty broad area, and you can make your mark in various aspects of IP. So I mostly am familiar with the patent side of things, and I think that's for example, just take a look at the growth of patents filed by startups in the country, and we are seeing a very large uptick. Look at the patent filing incentives that the government has made available for startups and MSMEs. So in that domain, I see very strong growth. But also, if I look at the other areas of IP, India has been very strong when it comes to trademarks. Copyright, again, if your understanding is very good, you can apply it to various domains, be it authors, be it the film industry, or even the tech industry. Design rights are, again, a growing area because as products come out to the market, you have to make sure that, they look great. They are, they're, as a person holds different products in their hands, they feel great. So design rights also play an important factor in I guess, the design aspects of products. We have GI, which is, coming up great in the country. So what you can do as a lawyer is provide additional counsel. So on one side, of course, you have the role for agents who can do that. But an overall legal perspective or a legal strategy, to me, that is an untapped area in the market, and it has a lot of room to grow. So I think the sky is the limit, in my opinion. Dr. Kshitij, would you like to add to that?
No, you are very right about that. And one has to follow, what is his interest and how that could be substantiated. And based on that, he can explore one of the areas as you suggested. That areas are so many and careers are so many, but you have to find out what is your interest first and how realistically you can do that. So, another question which is not that much, legible to me, but it is, Mr. Sankar Dayal, who is asking that, sir, I have an intellectual property, but I don't have an idea which startup we have to start with or something. So are you getting this?
Shankar, I'm not sure I fully understand your question. It sounds.
Yeah.
Are you asking if you don't know which idea to take for a startup? Maybe if you can type in the chat box and clarify. I think I see a couple of other questions which have
Yeah,
come up.
yeah, please. So there's one, how modern of future technologies like IoT and AI together with IPRs can help villagers working in MSMEs.
So for our 2020 batch of startups, we had two very interesting startups. One was a startup which is headquartered in Jaipur, and they are making these uh, basically soil sensors. So think of it as something which you can plant in the soil, right? So this was the sensor. I have a pen in my hand, and I'm just sticking it in the soil. What that sensor did is it would measure different parameters such as the overall temperature, the humidity, the pH, other factors in the soil, which are important for farmers. And then every now and then it will wake up and transmit the data back to their cloud engine. Now, if they think of if you are putting these sensors across various farms and all that, if you're a company like that, you can understand this data and figure out, okay, fine, your pH level is changing so and so. So here is how you need to change the fertilizer or the amount of water which you are putting in, things like this. So that's one area where you have a combination of Internet of Things, which is the sensors connected to this device. You are doing a lot of intelligence based on that. There was another company which made a device like these, which is put on these really expensive tractors. So the challenge that they were trying to solve is that farms in India, compared to West, are in different shapes and sizes. So in the West, I guess you can have a, let's say, a rectangular patch, very clean, very easy. But Indian farms, can be of different shapes, right, based on how the plot is divided. And now, how should they go about, let's say, doing various operations in the farm itself? So they were gathering the data from the satellites also, like historical information that here is how the pattern is, here is how you're expected to receive rain. They're also gathering a lot of data from sensors like what I talked about and saying that this is how the pH is changing in the region around here. Alongside that, they have an accurate, because someone may have an entire farm, but maybe you don't want to put the same level of fertilizer because crops can change right from one part of your farm to another. So they are using, let's say, your GPS navigation and make sure that this vehicle goes around and does the appropriate kind of, I guess, seeding or fertilizing. So these are just a couple of examples that I know on a first-hand basis. But there's a lot of interesting stuff happening when it comes to agri-tech, especially rural IoT technologies.
Okay. So there are a few other questions. So one of them is how, if you are mentoring startups, how one can reach out to you.
So Akshay, I will please connect with me on LinkedIn. That's one way to do that. Uh, you can feel free to ask your questions even after this, right? And this is for the entire class. I'll be happy to work in whichever capacity.
We will be inviting him again, and I think we are forging something which would be enabling these students to find their ways. Yeah, and the next one is from Sabad Shah Khan. While pitching any innovative ideas in an organization, who would be a better person to address it to in the hierarchy of the organization? So basically, structure of your
Sure.
training.
So I've always been in organizations, be it in academia or in the industry, at places where that hierarchy was not important as far as telling that idea was concerned. So the person who should be pitching the idea is the one who understands the problem the most and also who has come up with that innovative solution in the first place. Because that person has the true passion of telling that story. Like, for example, we heard Dr. Mittal give an amazing insight in the form of a story. And let's say there might be someone else who has a designation of a storyteller, but I think Dr. Mittal has internalized that one. So he's the best person, in my opinion, to convey that story, regardless of anyone else's title, hierarchy, whatever. The one who has internalized it is the one who can convey it in the best format. So don't bother about hierarchy. If you're so passionate about it, just go ahead and convey it.
So the other one is, if we are to, it is from Sahil. If we are to tackle global warming, technology transfer is very important aspect of it. How Qualcomm can help developing world as far as patented technologies are concerned. Basically on technology transfer aspect.
Sure. So Sahil, again, a disclaimer here, it's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
So the way this is done is through various variety of fronts. So one is enabling different products, be it wearable devices, be it IoT devices which are monitoring different parameters around the world. For example, Qualcomm, you might have heard about this Mars rover, right? And on Mars, there's a rover which landed. Now that is powered by a Qualcomm powered, product, the Qualcomm chip which is inside there. There's also the first time ever that a helicopter or a drone was flown on Mars. That also, I'm just very proud to say that it's enabled by Qualcomm. It is one of those pieces which has come in. So similarly, we have products which are enabling very interesting applications around the world, uh, right from satellites, to different deployments in shapes and forms. The other is working with different entities such as startups. We have startups which are developing these devices and how we mentor them across the world. So we have startup programs which are there in India, in Taiwan, and in Vietnam. Uh, and likewise, right? So it takes working on a variety of fronts. I mean, with a problem which is as deep as global warming, it takes a lot of folks. So collaborating is the best way to do it, and that's how the company has done, in numerous examples.
Okay, so I will be just concluding it by just asking the final question by myself. I mean, it is my question. So because you are dealing with SMEs, MSMEs, and startups also, so the nature of these two are a little different. I mean, the startups are looking at solutions. They are very innovative in that very process. So they may come up with the prototypes and all that. Am I audible to you? Hello.
Yes.
Have you got it? What?
Yeah, you are. Your video paused for a second.
Okay. So I will be repeating it. I mean, based on the difference between MSMEs and startups, startups are more, innovative. They are on an innovative track. I mean, they try to find out some solutions so that they can, start something. But in case of MSMEs or SMEs, sometimes they create something which is valuable from the IP perspective, but they are not realizing. The identification problem is there. The other problem is that they may not be able to, provide you a prototype like startups can provide. So what is the right approach in dealing with these different entities? I'm just asking your experience if you have it.
It's a very good question. I don't think the way I approach it changes based on the kind of company. Because I've done this at even say large companies and all that. I like to keep things simple. So in some sense, I always prefer if people have a problem and a solution framework. Identifying a problem and defining it is the first step forward. Have they been able to do that? And after that, how have they solved the problem? Once they are able to express it, then I try to ask them on three fronts. So one is, who is the customer that's going to be affected by this thing, and if they have really defined it, because a lot of times they have a product for which the user is nobody, or there's no one in their immediate vicinity. So identifying the right customer is also important. Then I ask them that, hey, what is the true difference you're bringing compared to existing solutions in the market? can you define those differentiators? And is that difference just for the sake of it? Or is it a difference which is taking the customer like from point A to a much higher value of experience? And last is, if you are able to bring this, let's say if you're making it at scale, can you create or say a good business or a viable financial return out of it? So if you ask them these questions, I think that's important no matter what the size of the company is. And once they do that, then they realize, okay, fine, this is something which is innovative, which I can scale as a product. Else they may say that this is an interesting idea, but I need to nurture it a bit more before it is ready to be a product.
Yeah. Thank you so much for this very, you can say, insightful talk and very useful talk, if I say. And it fills the gap, I mean, between the academia or what is going on in the real world. So this very linkage must on, and I will be inviting you again and again. I will invite Raman sir if he say something about this.
Yeah, just thank you. Thank you very much. It was very nice meeting you online though, and listening to your views on such an important aspect of innovation, which really is the need of the hour. Our country needs it, and we can really grow and prosper with this. Thank you so much.
So thank you so much, Dr. Raman, and all the students who are here, all the other folks from the University of Delhi who joined. Thank you so much. Pleasure and an honor to be here.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.